Tactical distributors. Unpossible 15 gets you 15% off.
It's, you know, I've been listening to all the Hemingway audio books and then stories about him, and you know, for him, how like painful it was to like force writing and like just, I don't know, any creative process. I'm sure, I don't know, maybe we'll transition this into something related to.
Well, I mean, guns. They design things that maybe you have an idea, like even these scope mounts or whatever. Like, yeah, it's a thing that exists, but you have to make it different.
Yeah, different, unique. You know what I've always appreciated about your design skills, Eric? Like when we think about the Honey Badger and how that's become iconic, and you know, the first one that Ethan really did, or the one that you guys cobbled together. Right. That's Ethan's design. You know, the only things that looked attractive on it, the grip, and you could start to see how the stock was gonna.
Yeah, this guy here.
Yeah, this turn out. Okay, that looks pretty good. And like everything, like, and knowing the two of you, I know the parts that Ethan did. But you know, now Ethan appreciating the design aspect. But where we went from this prototype Honey Badger to right away the next ones where you guys want to do clear anodize but the subtle stylistic stuff that you did that make that gun iconic. And, you know, for us not having you with us at Q, and we decided to build the gun again, and it's like, okay, well, this is, you know, the aesthetic part of it is Eric's. We need to change the aesthetic to some degree, but, you know, and we had a kid there, nice kid and talented kid, doing industrial design stuff, and he was very confident, and I applaud him, and I'm like, man, it's got to be different, but good luck making it look better. Like, I don't know.
Thanks.
But what I love about it is, you know, you see a lot of things and people try really hard. And I know you'll know what I'm talking about, even if I can't verbalize it, but they try hard to make it look different.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it just turns out ugly. And where I think you also have a great eye, some of that could be working with guys like Ethan or Mike Mabry, but is where, okay, you don't want to add a bunch of material because it adds weight, and you got to know where to take things away to where, you know, you can remove weight without losing strength in key areas.
Right.
Like, that's art in and of itself. But like, do you remember looking at the Honey Badger, and when you did that, and I know the time frame was fast, but the original Honey Badgers that we shipped in the pink cases that went to guys, it was so simple and industrial and nothing more than you needed, but it fucking looked incredible. When you see them today in a gun store, the Honey Badger, it stands out with 1,000 ARs. Still.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
What's the process? Like, how do you do that?
Like you said, it's hard to verbalize, but it's kind of like the form has to dictate, or the function dictates the form, rather. Right.
Yeah.
So, like you said, people can get outside the wheelhouse of making it look different just to be different, and you can either add too much weight or you can remove too much material. You know, you turn into like a Formula One car kind of a thing where they only have material where they need it because they're taking it, you know, basically pushing the limits of what they can do with the materials they have available, right?
Yeah.
So with the Honey Badger, it was like, how do you make this thing as lightweight as possible, but not fragile, right?
Yeah.
And it was. I remember we went back and forth about, does it have to be a dedicated upper and lower set? And we, you know, we went from this, where these were MP7 rails that we cut apart from an MP7 stock, which I'm sure people would be
it's criminal
tearing their hair out if they heard that. But
at the time that was like even more rare than it is now.
Yeah,
I was probably one of 5 people or companies that had an MP7 outside of H&K and the government.
Yeah. But you know, it was a snag hazard. It was bulky. It was clunky, and so that's when we decided that it had to be a receiver set of upper and lower, and all custom parts basically.
Is it interesting to you, like the PDW? We'll call it a PDW style stock. It's not really what I call it, but as popular it's become that no one has been willing, and I mean, you too, you've worked at a lot of these companies where no one's been willing to do it, like commit to it. Like, yeah, it needs to be integrated in with the receiver. Like, why has no one done that?
Cost, laziness, I don't know.
Yeah, probably manufacturability is tough. You know, the AR-15 platform was, you know, it's obviously made its mark in the world, but you know, the AR-180, AR-18 was kind of the follow-up to the AR-15 that, you know, Stoner was kind of like, this is probably what I should have done for the AR-15.
Kind of the progression.
M16,
sure.
yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. You know, and that's what, you know, with the ACR Masada back in the day, that was the goal, was to take an AR-15 and make it better, make it more manufacturable, make the plastic parts that need to be plastic or could be plastic being the stock. You didn't have, you know, the reciprocating wasn't in the stock. You had a foldable stock at that point.
They actually tried to make a polymer AR-15 lower receiver and like kind of a dovetail buffer tube thing before the ACR Masada, and they ultimately just decided they couldn't do it. It was just going to be a compromise in every way. So I
didn't know that.
Basically started from scratch and designed the Masada.
Yeah, once you start going down the road, then it doesn't seem overwhelming if you got to just start over, I guess. But I think it was interesting for me. I guess you and Ethan probably just always sort of connected because, you know, you're into motorcycles and lots of other things. And I know, you know, Ethan's passion was always like shit with motors and wheels. But I think at UNH, they started that whole like Formula One race car thing that they do.
The competition every year.
Yeah, his senior year.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they were the first ones. But you guys just always connected on that, it seemed like to me, where you understood each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
To where you weren't trying, you know, I wasn't from a marketing perspective saying it needed to necessarily look a certain way. You weren't trying to add stuff for unnecessary reasons. And we believed in Ethan's minimalist approach. Like, this is what the gun is. This is what they want it to do. And we had to start, we were talking about it earlier. People say, oh, you know, like the haters and the Rodneys, you could build a gun for a third the price. The Honey Badger is just as good. And you start thinking about the subtleties. And I know aesthetically how you're able to do all these subtle things that make the design language, make the entire gun look
intentional.
Like it's, intentional, and it goes together. Not like it's a hacked up butcher job like we did on this first one.
Right.
And it's beautiful in that way. But it takes the detail. When we talk about the Honey Badger being a pound lighter than any of its competitors,
right?
It's like, okay, well, this is why there's not a lot of parts commonality. The gun looks like an AR. The receiver sets are different. The bolt carrier is different. The operating system's different.
Right.
Every stock part is different. The foreend's different. The barrel nut, the barrel, the adjustable gas block, a tapered muzzle, like all of these little subtle things is what makes it really great. And designing each part and making each part, it's very expensive and cumbersome, but it's how we're able to make, if you've never held the Honey Badger and you pick up any of the competitors and then pick it up, there is no one that doesn't instantly notice a huge difference.
Absolutely, yeah. It's expensive to make things bespoke or whatever you want to call it that are purpose driven, right? And so people like, you know, obviously I've design background. I've really pick apart design of things aesthetically and otherwise, and you know, people like to basically broadly paint a thing, right? So it looks like an AR-15, so it must be the same thing, and they're not looking into the nitty gritty. And then we get a lot of that on our optic mounts and stuff. Like, oh, that just looks like someone else's thing. You're like, well, maybe some of it does.
Looks like a one-piece mount. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Who, you know, does their mount look like someone else's mount, and where did they get that from? And it's the subtleties and the nuances that really, I think, make the difference if you're willing to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and it is interesting, and I know you can relate. Well, you know, I had somebody say to me, "Oh, that's just a Geisley mount." It's like, well, yeah, did Eric and Nick do a new thing by doing a one-piece mount? No, but Geisley, like, well, that looks like a Knight's Armament mount from 20 years ago to me. Like, how much history you know?
We were just with Trey a week or so ago, and he's like, I did all that 20 years ago.
So, yeah,
he's all riled up.
And he's not lying.
No, yeah, and we said, and he was kind of mad because we weren't doing, like, crazy new things. I was like, Trey, yes, you did, but we're doing it now for a specific purpose, for a specific person, a group of people who are doing a thing with the thing. So yeah, it does look a bit like the Geissele mount because we started with the ROF 90, which was the top mounted RMR mount that we had a customer come and ask us for, and it had to match.
Yeah, a military customer, not a big U.S. distributor to the wannabes.
It had to match up with a Geissele scope mount that they already owned, and so we had to use that same style and language, and then that's basically just transpired into what is now like our AUS mounts. It's all user requested things that we put into one entity that didn't exist, and and that's what we did. And we're not claiming that we invented the one piece scope mount or the the
haters are gonna hate.
The red dot mounts that we do. We never intended to be a mount company, but people asked us to make things that other people weren't willing to do, and we did it.
It's so cool when I used to want to control the direction of a lot of the company and different things, but years ago when we were working together, and even before that when you were at Magpul, but when we start working, because everybody will say, oh, it's this user driven, and I think that's an important part of y'all's background that I hope people will take away from this, because now there's like 40 companies that make mounts.
Sure.
And back when I met you guys and your kids just getting in the industry, like there was 2.
Right.
And how did you differentiate yourself? And people can say user, but I know the programs that you guys have worked on. I know who these are going to, and it's not that you have a cousin that went through Buds once, and and I mean these are for really elite guys. And from my standpoint, what I love about it is like I don't want ugly stuff.
Sure.
And that's the J part of me. Like you got to look good, but yeah, if I can save an ounce or two on my one-piece scope mount, because I want a one-piece mount rather than rings. Well, when you do that, you add a lot of weight, but you also add rigidity, and you're not you're less likely to torque the tube of your scope, and all these great features.
Right.
And I love that you guys give me scope mounts, but so will a lot of other companies. But I love that this thing isn't ugly, it's not bulky, and it's lightweight. And I think it's what we're trying to do as a company as well. And you're right. Kind of the beauty of this, we didn't start out like we didn't want to make triggers.
Right.
And we did, but if we're going to do it, it's going to be the best trigger. We're not going to do it just to do a trigger.
And quality costs, and that's what people have a hard time understanding.
And design costs. Like it's really easy to buy AR parts and put together AR-15s.
Because dozens of companies make them, and they're all the same parts. They just have a different label on them. But
and good luck getting large quantities to perform at a high level when you're doing that. And that's where something, it's funny, Trey saying that, and Knight's Armament can say what he said to you with everything in the industry, and it's 100% true.
Sure.
But I think it's up to Knight's. Like, they're the ones with all the money and have done everything.
Right.
They're the ones that should be doing the all new stuff.
Right.
I mean, they've done it a lot of times.
Yeah.
I would love to see.
That's one I don't understand, is that so many things that we use all the time and whatever, they were the first ones to do it, but it's been however long.
Yes and no. Like, look at the German FG-42. Like, where do you think those flip-up sights came from?
That's true,
Right. I mean, look at his Colt collection of the original ACR program.
Right.
Where do you think that mod stock came from? Like, Knight's Armament has changed our industry, and they've made huge, important products for actual war fighters that change things.
Right.
And, from their night vision, the flip-up sights, to their fore ends, the vertical grip back in the... I mean, we could name 100 things.
Rail panels.
I mean, just all these incredible things. I mean, we know it's probably my favorite overall gun company, them and H&K, and it inspired me, and I'm sure everyone at this table.
Sure.
Right.
But... like, why didn't y'all follow through on that PDW?
Every time I see him, I'm like, dude, we got to finish that gun.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool.
I mean, it is, but it's nice to have 500 military contracts and not care about the commercial market.
Yeah.
But that gun,
that was good times back in the day. I was looking at your picture of the helmet gun over there. That was the silencer shoot.
Yeah, did you shoot that thing?
No.
So
I was next to him when he did it.
Super dangerous.
We'll need to put that picture in this. Trey is such a... I mean, he's had the fortune to work with his father, and also stoner for the last 10
Right.
years of his life, and just all these brilliant guys, and seen the craziest stuff of anyone near my age in our industry.
Sure.
And it would be great if he wrote a book one day, but he would never do it. But the stuff they say, but he shows up to the silent, and I don't know, did you ever even notice that picture?
I've seen the picture, yeah, but I didn't know that.
So
it was from
that
there.
is a Tech 22 on top of, I think, a ProTech helmet with a
Yeah.
cable and a trigger. You fire. It's
Like
so
a camera
dangerous.
cable. Yeah.
Yeah, because you turn your head and sorry.
Yeah.
And but he got that from Stoner, patented this helmet gun thing, and I think it had 2 Ruger Mark 1s mounted to the side of it, and you would fire that way. So if you're riding a motorcycle or something, you could shoot. And I'm sure someone asked Stoner to do it. It's
Right.
probably not like
Yeah.
he came up with the idea, but Trey remade that. His version of it, and it did it with a Tech 22. It's so funny. It sat so far on top of the helmet, even with 22 with a silencer, you would shoot it and you go every time. And anyway, that's a picture I think he sent to me after the silencer shoot.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
because it was so dangerous. It's
Right.
just me and Trey, and maybe like a couple people shot at Johnny Noveski probably. or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
He had a 22 PW out there too.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Like a Knights PDW in 22.
It was like a cobbled together. I don't know who made the actual.
You know who has one?
Who's that?
My son.
Really?
Oh, no way.
Yeah. They gave, and it might be the one from the shoot, or he built one
Oh,
for
that's
Aiden
funny.
after. Because he just adored Aiden, and Aiden was born a couple years before his kids.
Hmm.
And Aiden, like, loved Star Wars, so Trey was our, instantly
Right, right,
buddies
yeah,
with him.
right.
And would send Aiden stuff all the time. And Aiden loved World War II and the Knights Museum. So, we would go down there several times a year, and he and Aiden were good buddies. And he sent Aiden, I think for his 4th birthday, that Nerf belt-fed
Oh, right. Yeah.
machine
Oh,
gun.
nice.
And I remember Aiden would, being a little kid in the old advanced armament building, he would ambush people in the hallways. Like he would he'd build
Yeah,
his
yeah,
little
yeah.
sniper hide with it back in one of the rooms, and when people come down the hallway, and shoot them with the dart. It's pretty awesome. But people like y'all's age probably playing Call of Duty, the chainsaw gun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
right.
he did
That was
that
also silencer
as a
shoot.
joke
Yeah.
just for that silencer shoot, and
Yeah.
that's where we all shot it. And it was a
Yeah.
Stoner 86 that he converted to a chain. He just thought he got into ergonomics for a
Yeah.
while,
Right.
Yeah.
and was like, a chainsaw makes sense. That's how you need to shoot them. And we shot so many
Yeah.
rounds through that gun.
And that was a 3D machined Delrin before 3D printing was
Yeah.
usable.
Yeah.
So he spent a ton of time making that thing happen.
It's good when you're creative and you have hundreds of millions of dollars of resources. I mean, in a different life, Trey would have been like Iron Man.
Right.
For real, because
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got the imagination, and if it were up to him, he would have spent money on that kind of stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because and you're right. The things that they would do to
Right.
he would go in the prototype shop at nights and have them spend weeks on just shit like this, and I don't know if it was worth it, but it was an exercise to him. But I mean, now you see that gun in Call of Duty and stuff, and
It
all
just
that
started as a
was
joke.
he just did it as a joke for us to fuck around with it at the
Yeah,
silencer
right.
shoot.
It's crazy.
And then it was fun, so it just kept getting passed around.
Right.
But yeah, that's where that was too. He brought those two things.
So
that
silencer shoot, bringing it back. That's changing lives, man.
I know, changing lives, changing video,
Influencing
games.
people.
man.
Yeah.
It was such an interesting time. We talk about we're fortunate to be in the industry and doing what we do from 2001 to 2011 when there was so
Right.
much going on.
Right.
And I don't know that we'll ever see that again in our lifetimes to where, and I mean, you hope you don't in some regard, but
Right.
the good part of that was we were able to have greater access to the guys, and that the industry was able to develop product for them that then, really kind of catapults a lot of the war fighting forward. And then the upside is on the commercial side. Everyone
Right.
gets the benefit
Right.
of this.
Especially with the assault weapons ban expiring. I mean, it just catapulted everything,
yeah,
right?
That's
So it
right.
was-
That's right. That was 04, huh?
Yeah, War on Terror plus AWB going away. It just was the perfect storm for innovation.
Yeah. So much cool stuff. I mean, but, we talk about, the honey badger was just, and I've told the story before, but it's in a hallway, and, the uppers had been purchased for 416s, and, I understood their purchasing, and the life cycle was up on the MP5 SDs, and then
Right.
having, two young guys that and we had a couple bucks, and it's like you and Ethan, y'all's commitment to, in 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
We took that.
Something like that, yeah.
We took that. I took it up to those guys to shoot. Went back and forth several times before one of them broke the 3D printed stock.
Yeah.
That happened in the office too. Like one of the gorillas just like jerked it out, and a piece goes. Pew! Like,
That's the problem with prototypes. No one ever knows that they're prototypes until they break.
Yeah. But and how that turned into something so quickly, and I think it is part of like what you guys do and being reactive, even if it's just the top cap. What do you call it?
ROF 90, yeah.
Yeah.
So 90 and 45 options.
So to put a little RMR on there, and you support those groups, you give the one guy a little bit of an advantage, and they come back to you next time, and you keep getting the opportunity to do stuff.
Right, which is the people like other companies that in that industry that's where they got their start. Even at Magpul back in the day, it was listening to the guys who were asking for the things, and we fixed the problems that Richard always said that we'd give them what they need, not what they want, kind of a thing. So we'd go out there and we'd watch them do what they're doing, do what they do, and they think, oh, we need this. I'm like, okay, well, I know you think you need that, but what if we did this instead? Like, oh, I didn't think of it that way.
People kind of describe their needs in terms of what they know. And so Richard always used the HK 416 steel magazine as an example. When we did the PMAG, there were a lot of haters and a lot of doubters out there because they were only experience with polymer was the thermolds and just the early stuff that was legitimately terrible, right? And so we made the PMAG, and people always said, no, we have to have a steel magazine. Well, what they meant was they want a durable magazine. They want a reliable magazine. It doesn't matter if it's steel or balsa wood. They're asking for a performance requirement, not necessarily material, but they didn't know any better. So when we came out with the PMAG, we had a lot of work to do to prove the fact that not only was it as good, but it was actually better in a lot of ways. It was more reliable. It was obviously lighter. It was cheaper. And
if you dropped it, the feed lips didn't stay deformed.
Exactly right. Yeah, you shaved off. We won a contract in the UK for, I think it was 1.1 million E-mags. And we had done this for a couple different user groups in the U.S. as well who were running 416s. The PMAG original one was not compatible with their magazine.
Yeah, was this just the 416, or was this the what's the bullpup gun?
SA80.
Yeah, so it was that magazine as well.
Yeah, exactly. And so the small user groups here and abroad that use the 416 wanted that, but we were able to sell 1.1 million of them to the UK MOD at large because we shaved a kilogram per man off. By eliminating the steel mags.
Is this? Am I remembering this correctly? They did a steel mag originally, not for the 416, but they did it for the bullpup, SA80, because it had to be. They were trying to get the rounds up as high as possible, right? So using the steel mag to reduce the feed lips. Is that the reason over aluminum? And then they just had that mag, so they used it in the 416.
I don't recall it originally on the SA80. Yeah. I think it always had steel, but
I do know that like the 416, the low magwell, the front of the magwell, that was because they had a training magazine that had a little fence that popped up so you couldn't put live rounds in it, and it had if you look at the 416 magwell, there's a little half crescent cut out of it, and when you insert it into the gun, that little fence gets pulled down by that cut, and so that's why the 416 has such a low forward magwell.
Yeah, created a lot of problems.
The shit that you don't know.
But then, what we were saying before that, these guys had the 416s. We had PMags that weren't compatible, and so we had to sit there and hand mill thousands of these things at first before we got the E-mags up and going
on a Bridgeport. Yeah, it was funny.
That's cool. When you brought up the plastic or you have something that's polymer as opposed to aluminum or steel, and if you drop it on the feed lips, I remember Trey telling someone, it wasn't even their product. And have you ever heard me tell this story before?
Not sure.
So we were talking about, it's like when RMRs were becoming a thing. So this is 20 years ago. And we were at a trade show or a military show, and just shows like his breadth of knowledge and experience, like with his dad and Stone and everything he's absorbed. It's just like instantly he's right there thinking about it. And somebody was talking about, the RMR is plastic, blah, blah, blah. And maybe it was a Doctor Optic back then or something. But there was an aluminum one.
Yeah.
And Trey just
Doctor,
instantly said, well, you want an aluminum or a plastic trash can? And he's like, I kicked my plastic trash can. It just goes right back to what it was. He's like, kick out the aluminum one. It's got a big ass dent in it forever.
Right. Yeah.
And it just like put it in perspective. He's like, you drop your optic on that, if you have the ability to make it polymer, like that absorbs so much and goes right back to the position that it was formed, and you're not going to get that with aluminum.
Yeah.
And I think about that every time I put a little RMR on my guns now.
Right.
And so, yeah, kind of the same thing you're talking about with the mags.
Yeah.
Yeah, pros and cons to each. I know I was at a group once, and I was with the guy who was in charge of all the like assault rifle stuff. And one of the operators came in there and wanted them to use the PMAG, and they weren't allowing it at the time.
Right.
And his argument was it's lighter, but this group used Colt aluminum mags. But it's interesting when you talk about like what people think or their impression of something. And he's like, it's polymer, it's lighter. He's like, and he had a scale on his desk. He's like, put it on the scale.
Yeah, aluminum's lighter.
Yeah. I mean, even the EMAG, like it's not, but you think it is. Like you want it to be because it's polymer.
Well, there's a lot of glass in there. Fiberglass reinforcement. You don't see that.
It's very dense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's even interesting with that. Okay, so it's a cheap plastic mag, all you do, injection, but like what goes into the design, engineering, and actually the manufacturing of that, like to not, it's a lot of what. I'm surprised PMAX sell for so little. Like it's just a volume thing
right
now,
right.
but like so much went into it. I know to make it correct.
Yeah, I mean we were still making it better until after I left.
Yeah,
I mean it's process at that point. It's the molds. It's learning how that behaves over time, and and refining that. During the lead up to the first Obama presidency, I forget what the number they were doing of mags a day molding, but it was all hands on deck, molding as many as they could, and it was
every tool we had. Yeah, it was insane.
I mean, I know I was told recently that there's 1,000 people or something in the facility in Wyoming.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've never been to it.
I haven't either. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you guys have 1,000 employees.
I believe it.
Oh, it's just in that facility.
Right.
Because they still have somebody's got to put those mags together.
Exactly. Exactly.
Put them in bags and stuff. But I mean, it's, but I think all these things are the experiences when we talk about your new products, or when I think about Ethan and still being impressed with him, and think about you guys 10 years ago. And it's not like you get worse at your job or dumber when you go through like all these actual projects, and some commercial projects, but a lot of the military stuff. And because there's so many companies. I mean, you show me new companies every day I've never heard of. Like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, there wasn't like a gun or gun accessory company I had never heard of.
Right. Easy. Yeah.
Right.
There just wasn't that many. And now everybody, claims all the same stuff, and it's just not, because I don't know. There's like, when you talk about magazines, like how many people do polymer magazines now? The Hex Mag or whatever that is. Yeah.
I mean, if people knew what actually went into the PMAG and development process, just from a material selection standpoint and tweaking the tooling, and the fact that, some of the first molds that we made, plastic, when you mold it, it warps and shrinks and does weird stuff, right? Yeah. So I remember
it's an art in and of itself.
And it's guess and check.
Or you spend 30 years learning.
Right, exactly. But I mean, I think a lot of people think that there's some sort of computer simulation that gives you this is the perfect exact design and whatever.
Most commercial consumers 100% think what you were saying.
Yeah.
And because we know even at the most elite levels in the military, the most elite groups, half the dudes aren't into guns and stuff.
Right.
And they sort of think the same thing too.
They do, yeah.
When they get there. But, they're the ones that are actually part of advancing our industry. And then they soon realize the work that goes in to just on their side, like your little acro mount or whatever. It's not like you're going to ship them to them. They're just going to put them on the guns and go into combat with it.
Right.
Like they're going to go out and shoot and do all this crazy shit with it, give you feedback, and there's going to be tweaks and changes. And, then even from their standpoint, holy shit, we want to change an optic mount. It's a lot of work on their end to do the testing and understand that it's good and it's not going to fail, and it's giving them an advantage over what they've got already.
Yeah. no, we've had a lot of testing done on a lot of our products that, by those groups, and we don't want to be the people who have to wave that flag, right? And so
it's not your personality,
right.
And knowing you a long time, I get that, but I also know what you've been through, what you've worked on, what you've done, and how valuable that stuff is.
Oh, thanks.
And it translates instantly to the consumer, and
right.
you go against I don't know who you guys consider competition. I only know probably 5 companies that make mounts, but I know there's like 100 now, and everybody will think they're your competition. And I think the Geisley mount's probably a good mount.
Yeah,
Night Force mount is a good mount. Like
sure.
There's several, but all of them, a lot of them look similar to yours, but there are so many terrible ones out there that are just junk, and you can mess up a scope mount very easily.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And you extrude it and you make it in China. There's a lot of people doing that. We're doing it out of billet in America. It's
right.
Yeah, and
it's hard.
And if you could extrude it and get the quality that was necessary, you would do it because you're not dumb. But
we do it here and not in China.
Well,
and that's the thing is
right.
People are used to, they always want to pay Chinese prices for American goods, right? So
yeah, funny doesn't really work like that typically. No. Yeah. I mean, it's like a lot of things. You get what you pay for to a large degree. But understanding that when you hold that next to the Chinese one, and everybody is, well, not everybody, but like all the idiots are like, they're just ripping you off. Like, why would this one cost 40? And there's that. And you could just say child labor, or materials, or like who pays the engineers that actually design and make the difference in designs? Like this stupid little Sling Devil that we just did, and you got several messages about how we're overcharging for them. It's this little plastic thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2 little glass-filled nylon deals and paracord, and they're like, you should only charge this. It's like, okay, if we had 0 engineers,
right,
and we put no R&D into it, if we didn't do the testing to make sure that it's what we said,
right,
it's like Ethan Lassard makes a lot of money, and then guess what? Then we're not selling like PMags. We're not selling $1 million a month of them or whatever the number is. Right. So somebody has to cut the paracord, has to burn the ends, has to put it in a bag, get the 2 pieces. Like even that aspect of it, like that's not some 6-year-old Chinese kid doing it for 3 cents a week.
Right. Even if you just broke it down to, you took one of our engineers, if one of our engineers spent 1 day doing everything, R&D, design, all that stuff, they just spent 1 day. Think about what they make, and that's 1 day of their work. Like if that was the price, it's more than it costs right now. Like if you just took them away from their job for 1 day to do that, and you made people pay that money, it's way more than it costs right now. So what are you complaining about?
But I love the idea too. Like I originally had the idea for watching this, like with my kids over at the water, watching like this $100 million yacht. It was tied to the dock, and how it was. I was like, it's so fascinating that you trust that to hold that $100 million thing.
Right.
And so then we started looking at it, I talked to the engineers, and I do some preliminary sketches, tell them what I want to do. And I'm like, this is a good way to attach and detach some things. Like, oh gosh, I mean, you guys, you understand the QD cup, like what a nightmare. You have this part, and it's like, okay, you got to make some best guesses because Uncle Mike's isn't giving out tolerance drawings.
Right. You can control that.
Right.
They can't control or
can't
whoever
control the other end.
Right.
But me spending my time on it, and then talking to the engineers, and them going through, even us 3D printing them in house, go through 20 different prototypes and designs, and then figure out the way. Okay, how can we make this little glass filled nylon thing pull 500 pounds? And then. It's by design, which no one wants to think about, but it's all encompassing. Okay, so we're using the paracord, and that's what's really, it is all the weight, because the way this is designed, it puts all the stress on the paracord primarily. Okay. And that's part of the design, and that's not somebody that's not an engineer, that doesn't understand these things, and doesn't have ability to go and test them, is going to figure out.
There's a weird kind of dichotomy, or even just like a juxtaposition with that thing too, is that because the Sling Devil itself and the way that we attach it is so simple that I think it tricks people. They think because it's Q that it needs to be more in depth or more They're just harder to use than it is.
Yeah.
The biggest question we get on the Sling Devil is, how do I attach it to the sling? I'm like, did you forget about knots? Like, do you not know how to do that anymore or whatever? Like,
yeah. But I mean, a lot of times when something's simple, like unless you like own the company or do the design or are aware of it, it's like that should cost next to nothing. Well, a lot of times you start with something very complex,
right,
and you keep boiling it down to what's simple. And I think the honey badger is an example of that. The scope mount's an example of that.
Yep.
The stupid Sling Devil, which, I mean, even Thomas carrying cameras and stuff in Africa, he's like, the Sling Devil is the best thing you guys have ever designed. Like after a week. And you just think, and he's like, there's so many uses for this. And you start thinking about it, and it's like, well, yeah, but you're right. At our company, like these are all reasons why things are expensive relative to other things, and it's why you want to buy from those companies that are willing to bet on themselves and develop product, and not always having a guaranteed customer. And that's something for you guys, like not wanting to pound your own chest or explain the background or how long you guys have actually been around, where God bless everyone out there trying to make a living, but it's like, okay, you used to do this other thing, or you were in the Army, and that's great, and then you retire, you got out 3 years ago, and you've always had a passion for guns. God bless you.
Right.
I did too, and that was 1994 for me.
Right.
And like that's a lot of what you pay for.
Right.
Like for instance, if I want a Knight's gun, am I going to pay $7,000 for a Daniel Defense 308 gun? No.
Right.
Am I going to pay $7,000 for a Knight's Armament SR25?
Absolutely.
Yes. And I know what he went through to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I know, we know the subtleties that make that gun great, and I know what Mr. Knight's time's worth.
Right.
And I want him to keep on doing those things. And
Right.
I think that's true with any of the companies that I admire. Like anybody that's actually putting in the work and chasing the thing, and you just can't get there without a lot of the experience or the connections. And sometimes it'll be, industry friends, whether it's like when me and Johnny and Trey met you guys, or it's working with other companies. But like I wouldn't support you guys if I didn't know the background and what you guys actually do and who you do it for. I mean, it'd just be another scope mount company. Big deal.
The connections in the network are so critical. We were talking about this earlier at breakfast. It's something that if we had tried to do this 10, 12 years ago when we didn't have access to guys like you and Trey and some of our military customers, I think it would have fallen flat.
But also experience, too, like you were saying. Like 10 years of experience is, you can't pay for that.
Well...
I mean, you can, but you pay someone who's had 10 years.
You can't buy it, but you pay for it with the best product.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. You can't buy it.
Yeah, you can't, and that's cool that you carried a gun for 10 years. That's cool, and that is experience. It's valuable. It doesn't make you good at designing gun parts.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and if we want to go back to like the Magpul story, where Rich Fitzpatrick, the founder of Magpul, he saw people doing the 550 cord with the duct tape around the magazines.
Yeah.
And he was like, that I can do that better. But he wasn't a design guy per se. Yeah. And that's where the original Magpul came from. But he's
a creative guy.
He was very creative, but not a product design was not his background.
No.
And then that's when and then the M93B, the prototype, or the what do you call it?
Oh, the
experimental stock. You remember that?
Yeah.
So he designed that whole thing in Adobe Illustrator,
like all 2D drawings.
Yeah. But then he got Mike Mayberry in there, who was passionate and was a product design, had a huge background. BOA, Juicy Breaks.
Yeah, we talked about him yesterday. I mean, that's that sort of dynamic duo thing that you want. Someone that is driven like Rich was.
Right.
And I remember seeing the experimental stock, and we should post a picture up now. And it was like nothing like that was being done. Yeah, so you knew there was something brilliant there, but then, now looking at it, it's like, oh my God, how are you going to make that? It's hideous,
it's
like
parts,
all these things.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you saw a change with Mike, with Magpul. And man, you got lucky.
I did, yeah, absolutely.
To get in there at that point.
It was a really fun time. It was something that like we talked about earlier, I was doing marketing for them, doing the graphic design
great
stuff.
time for marketing then, because like us and Magpul, there was no one else doing anything.
Everyone else sucked.
It was magazine print ads that were horrific.
Yeah, exactly. And I think our rule was always, if you saw Colt doing it, it was dead. So like style wise, you know, if someone like that latched on, they all did. You know, this was early in the global war on terror, you know, Iraq war type stuff. So everyone decided desert, dirty, you know, sandy kind of stuff. And then suddenly Colt's doing it. Like, okay, time to move on. Let's do a cool skateboard.
Well, that's where,
something
you know,
else.
the bagman thing came from.
Well,
Just making fun of the industry.
God, I hate that you said that. I was going to bring that up. One thing that I remember from Magpul was coming to SHOT Show and Magpul's booth. You guys, this was Orlando, probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
2000. Yeah.
The big thing in the background was it the like when
Seven.
the Masada was
That
shown?
was that was that year.
And it was like a dude in a uniform, but he had like a paper bag over his head with a smiley face drawn on it or something.
You want to know the backstory on that?
Of course, because it was brilliant. Like I actually still remember that, which is amazing. As much as I despise like gun industry marketing.
So Richard and I were doing all the graphic design and marketing at the time, and we were struggling because everything looked so generic. It was all dude in multicam stacked up on a door, you know, tactical bullshit. And so Richard was at Quiznos one day, and he saw the guy behind the counter was like this kind of fit, buff guy, and Richard's like, I have an idea. So he grabbed the guy, put him in some cry uniforms, and literally took a Sharpie on a paper bag and drew a smiley face on it and did a photo shoot in his basement real quick and knocked it out of the park.
So
It's,
iconic,
like, iconic
for our industry. Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome. I mean, it made an impression. But that was really the starting of not taking yourself too seriously in the gun industry.
Right.
Taking the product and your passion for it seriously, but you don't all have to pretend that you were Navy SEALs.
Right, exactly.
And, you know, because, I mean, the Navy SEALs aren't typically designing stuff for the Navy SEALs.
Right.
So there's just a lot of that, and that it doesn't have to be done that way. Those were just exciting times.
Yeah.
It's crazy that it hasn't caught on. Like, it seems like it's gone up and down. Like, Magpul, AAC were doing it differently, and obviously it made waves, whatever. But it's crazy that everyone didn't just decide, let's do that. Like, they didn't just jump on it. And you see it more now where everyone is doing last week's thing. Like, oh, I saw that company do that last week, let's do that. You see it more now, but still, like, there are still the companies that refuse to do so. Like, we talked about it on a previous episode. SIG put out a video where they collaborated with that Gypsy Walters dude. He's a tattoo artist, but he does a lot of, maybe it's Waters, whatever. But he's a tattoo artist. He does a lot of like gun art, stuff like that. But the video they put out was so off brand from what you expect from SIG. It was cool to see that because it wasn't the standard tough guy, tactical or Max Michel. Like, SIG is we know what they are.
Right.
And they did this, and it branched out. So it was cool to see that, but there's still those companies that will not do that.
You can't fake it, I think. And it's so transparent when you do. I mean, it's just like, I don't know how to verbalize it, but, you know, SIG is cool in their own way, and everyone is. But, like,
it's hard when you get yourself into a brand rut, right? Like where SIG is. So when they do something like that, it is cool and it's refreshing. But also, it's like, what are they trying to be cool? Because it doesn't make sense.
I mean, I think people have different ideas about business and how it needs to be done, and I get that, and that's kind of an old school way of thinking. But like, if you can't teach creativity to a large degree,
no, for sure,
and
it's organic,
and some people can recognize it, but they can't develop it,
right?
You know, like and that can be with industrial design, or it can be with mechanical design, or it can be
marketing. Yeah.
Just marketing, and it's, you know, just like you have friends that are awesome and they're great people, but they're not funny.
Right.
I mean,
and the problem is a lot of the stuff is subjective. You can't actually measure it, right? And so when someone says, well, I think that looks good, I can't quantifiably say, well, you're fucking wrong.
It's difficult. Like, I know we've all probably worked with people where, like, you have to have an answer in black and white to make the decision. There's nothing I do. Like, I don't even think the decisions come to me at our company anymore when it's a black and white decision.
Right.
Like, that's all easy. And it is hard when you want to do something like, hey, we're going to put to have leadership that says, you know what, this is all lame. We're going to put the bag over its head. I'll take a picture in my basement.
Right.
Bam, we're done. That made more, like, I can't tell you a single other piece of marketing from that SHOT Show.
Sure.
Yeah,
and
fair.
that was probably the cheapest backdrop of the whole thing. Like you can't fake it. And some of the big companies try to fake it, and some they'll get marketing people. They're good. Like I think Vortex right now, Scopes. Like I don't know a ton about them, and I don't even really know their marketing. I see some of their commercials on hunting shows that I watch, but somebody turned me on to some of their YouTube videos. They're fucking hilarious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you probably didn't know this either.
I did not know that.
Oh, they have this whole like one that's a competition, like shows their office in the cubes, and it's like hunting season starting. So this one guy like brings in, I don't know how it started, but maybe he brought in like he wore camo one day or something. So the next guy the next day brings in like one of his shoulder mounts, hangs it up in there. And then before you know it, by the end of the week, they've got all their shoulder mounts they've put in. Each of them, they're like competing. And they're putting in like climbing stands or like a ladder stand, and they're like all their hunting stuff, preparing for it. Yeah. And it sounds, I probably made it sound horrible, but if you watch the video, it's brilliant. Yeah. And and that's a big brand doing something, and it didn't seem forced. Right. Like they have somebody there in their marketing department that is hitting home runs.
Yeah, well, they're globally hitting home runs right now.
Well, yeah, I mean they make a great product, great value.
Right,
I mean,
right.
The other piece of marketing from that SHOT Show would have been the Masada poster, like the X-ray. Did you ever see that?
I don't know that I remember that.
We're giving out, I think they were like 11 by 17 versions of a like X-rayed version, so you could see all the components inside of it.
Oh, that's cool.
And then it called out everything. But
yeah, I mean, it was like similarity with the AR-15 was the goal was to show how many similar parts, and that remember the original Masada was like it's going to be coming at the awesome price at $1,200 and all these things that
only £4
yeah.
shipping next year.
When you make things that it's hard work, as we all know.
Don't say.
Yeah.
And then it turned into this when Bushmaster picked it up. So
it's hard, and so many people like blame Magpul, but not having understanding the industry. I mean, Magpul, you guys were a bunch of freaking kids that are just, you're wandering and you're deciding, hey, we're going to do this, and you can do the design, but manufacturing an entire gun. Okay, who's got $10 million?
Right. There you go. That's it. And one of the people that is kind of behind the scenes that I say most people don't know in this industry is a guy named Doug Smith.
Yeah.
Doug was the COO at Magpul. He was the guy that talked all of us off ledges like, hey, let's make this, or let's buy it back from Bushmaster. Let's do that. And Doug basically sat us down and said, this will bankrupt the company. Yeah. You understand that we make little widgets, we make grips, we make stocks, we make, like, that's our core competency. We don't want to spend, like you said, $10 million to do something that might fail.
It's hard taking risk. I mean, I'm probably more willing to do it to a fault than most people. And it was a big thing, us starting with the fix, and I funded it all. And if I had to do it over again, I'm not sure we could do it over again. If I had to do it over again, I would do it differently. And the passion will take you so far. At the end of the day, you got to write checks.
Right.
And it is easy, like all that coming together, and we see it with, a lot of our backlog now, supply chain and all these things. It gets real complicated when you got something that's got 100 parts in it,
right? As
opposed to a PMAG where you got, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a spring maybe?
Yeah.
Like
5
parts, 5 injection molded parts, and a spring.
Right.
Then you got to put it to, like, I'm oversimplifying it, and we know the devil's in the details, but that's a far cry from doing the entire gun.
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice to have scope mounts or magazines and stuff that are not serialized and regulated, and you have to have permission from ATF before you ship it, and you got to go.
Right.
Yeah. Doug may have saved the company if that was the conversation.
Brilliant. I mean, the guy, from a business standpoint, it was kind of funny because I may be misspeaking here a little bit, but I don't believe he had ever fired an AR-15 until he was COO of Magpul for like 7 or 8 years. And it didn't matter because he was the business side. He understood finance. He understood the supply chain. It was, I would say he's probably one of the smartest executives in the entire gun industry.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is he still there?
He is still there, yeah.
Look at what they're
doing. Doing all right, yeah.
Exactly, right. But he's always behind the scenes. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, no, so he's a good dude.
Yeah, you need that. I mean, I know I get messages almost on a daily basis. Hey, I'm getting out of the Army, or I have this job, but I'm so passionate about guns, I want to come work for you. And it's like,
right.
That's kind of my job.
Right.
Like everyone else we need. It's cool if you like guns.
Right.
And I want everybody to love guns. But, yeah, we got to solve for the problems at work, and we don't have a problem with
people liking guns.
Yeah, liking guns.
Right.
Yeah, and it's so easy now to get in the industry. I mean, you guys, to me, you both have done incredible things, and it's just you got to love the timing. I mean, you both were so fortunate, and a part of what made Magpul great. But it was great timing for Magpul. The leadership had the enthusiasm and the vision that we don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to do it our way, and we're going to change the world. And sometimes that works out. And I think Magpul is a great example.
And when we got there, the entire product development process was basically sitting around a table and saying, okay, I have an idea. Would you buy this? Would you buy it? Would you? Okay, let's make it. Go.
Yeah.
And there was no PowerPoint presentations and ROI calculations. It was just, what's going to sell? We all want it. There's a bunch of other dudes that want it. Like, let's do it.
I mean, I love that process, and I remember Advanced Armament, and now at Q, like I know, and I think we spoke to some of this yesterday, but like I understand this is the great time for Q, and this is an exciting time for Reptilia and for you guys. And once it gets to a certain size, like that conversation has to change.
Right. It does, yeah.
And the company, it's very difficult to stay one size and stay innovative or stay true to who you are.
Right.
And as you grow, it's like, what do? Do you separate the creative stuff from production? Is that, and I don't know any of these, and we're going through this as a company now, and at some point you got to make decisions, and you don't know until you're looking in the rear view mirror if it was the right thing or not.
Yeah. Right.
But I won't give up on that's the way I want to design some things. And we talked about yesterday the minifix, like the Honey Badger. I think has become one of the most iconic guns in America or the world, even because of Call of Duty. Right. And we have a huge demand for it, and it pales in comparison to the demand for the minifix. And who would have thunk it? And we still, and I ask myself sometimes, people, I mean, I don't know how often you get the question, Jay. I get it like probably once a month. Like, what is that gun for? Like, why would you want it? Right. And it is like, it's actually the best question, and it's kind of an impossible question to answer.
Yeah. And like we say, you just, once you shoot it, you'll find out. Like, you'll know. When you shoot it, you'll know, but it's hard to vocalize.
There is no one that disagrees. I reposted a picture of a guy, this week. A guy, he tagged us, but he also sent me, it shows up, and he sent a DM. And the tag, I don't remember what it was, but the guy had lots of incredible guns. Like, the dude knows guns, clearly has some dough. But he had the fix, he had the Honey Badger, he had an MP5, he had like all these things. And he's like, it's hard to explain to people, but the minifix is my favorite gun. And you would never guess it until you pick it up and you shoot it and you use it.
Well, think about the H&R handy rifle that you guys did. I mean, that was something that, if I recall correctly, the Remington guys, HR guys, are like, no, that's dumb. And then that one single SKU.
That was probably me saying that.
Maybe. But that one single SKU outsold all of the other handy rifles combined.
The way I remember the handy rifle coming about is Robert was really engaged at that point, and just by his nature, like figuring out cheap things,
right?
Yeah,
and figured out if we ordered it, they had to sell them to us at like $80 or whatever the thing was. I mean, it was something ridiculous. And once we kind of figured out sister companies and how it worked and all,
right?
And I was like, man, this is my recollection, and Eric's or yours, they might all be different and all be correct or all wrong. I don't know. But the way I remember it is Robert came to me and was like, hey, we should do this. I was like, that is so stupid. He's like, he goes like, yeah, but it's his goal is to make 300 Blackout succeed.
Yeah.
And he's like, they cost us $80 and we can sell them for $150 or whatever it was.
Right.
And
even at that price, it's a steal.
Right.
For what it is.
Yeah, because it turned out to be one of those things where you go to the range of your buddies, and especially now with ammo prices, it's part of what I love about a single shot or a bolt gun over a gas gun is you have just as much fun. You spend 10% of the ammo.
Yeah, right. It's not $50 per magazine. Like you can hang out and.
I mean, because we all think about it. You think about like sitting around. I'm not saying having a beer because you're handling firearms. Christine wouldn't appreciate that. So we'll say you're having a soda with your buddies, and you just pick out a target at 50 meters, 100 meters, and you put one round in, take a shot, and you
like,
pass it around.
With BB guns back in the day, like a Red Ryder, right?
Yeah.
I remember, where were we? was with Drake. We were at that hunting trip that we'd go on every year, and it was hunting, like you could shoot whatever you wanted. They had clays going all the time, but they had this stupid Red Ryder BB gun, and we just shot the shit out of that thing.
It's
just so much fun because you just it's just there's a weird challenge to it, and it's like again it's a game at that point.
Yeah.
It's not like a tactical thing.
Working in this industry, people come up to you and say, "Hey, you want to go shoot the 249? You want to go shoot the 240?" I'm like, it's hot, it's loud. But then I'll come in with a new 17 HMR. We're like, oh yeah, let's go kill prairie dogs.
Yeah.
Like, I want to do that over the 240.
Should we bring that back, the handy rifle? We have an opportunity to do so.
How about a handy rifle with 8.6?
Yeah, it would be awesome.
I already talked to Adam about it. Like, just do barrels. Be fantastic.
Yeah, we could do it.
We got something I don't know about going on.
No, we just floated the idea, and we have the ability to do it through old Nate Treadaway.
We should definitely do it. Because what do those handy rifles go for now if you find them in 300?
I have no idea.
Probably too much. I know Colin has one in 300, but I've never seen them for sale in 300. But
You haven't?
Not like recently, like the aftermarket.
One of them told me that recently on Gunbroker it was $600.
I was going to say it's probably $500-600.
I have two. I have the very original prototype. Robert wanted to do a heavy barrel.
No.
And it has iron sights on it. And the gun weighs like 10 pounds. It is so stupid. But it shoots real nice.
Yeah.
Iron sights. So I think the production when we ended up putting a 1913 in a lightweight barrel and threaded it 5/8/24.
Yeah. I've got one of those, yeah.
It's a cool little gun. Yeah, so I've got, I think, one of the production ones in that original prototype.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
single shot 8.6 that would be cheap. Ooh. I mean, it would be even more fun than that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
8.6 is quiet and hits twice as hard.
Yeah, because I forget the name of the company off the top of my head right now, but the
H&R and
those are the original ones. I just mean the one that BPI Nate talked about it when he was here.
That's right.
They were doing muzzle loaders.
Powder. Yeah, because
they do a handy rifle too.
I forgot. Yeah, you're right.
And so if we did the tooling, I'm sure we could just drop a barrel in and
we should totally do those. Yeah. That would be cool. Q could make a cool single shot thing. You make it cool because it's one of those things. Just like when we get back to the mini fix, like you just got to shoot it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Think you don't want to own it. I mean, Ivanka, she shoots all the stuff, and 90% of it is by choice. Is that mini fix with its under chicken?
Yeah, it's just fun. You don't have to have hearing protection on, and just have fun.
Yeah.
And you don't. I mean, granted, you can blow through rounds if you want, but
right.
But like I said, a little 10-round mag, and just it's taking you a couple seconds to shoot through in between each round, and you can go spend a day and shoot under 100 rounds, and you just had a blast for the day.
Great day. Well, what? All right, let's get back to some Reptilia mounts. I got some questions. So you guys got the 30 mil that you had. Mm-hmm. You're just coming out with 34 now?
The 34 has been released. Yeah, so like I said, that's the first clear one, but the black and FDE are for sale right now.
You can get them on the website right now?
Yeah.
What is y'all's website?
ReptiliaCorp.com.
Seems like we said that yesterday.
Yeah.
I maybe had some beers.
We all had one. But yeah, so the 34 is there. We've got the prototype 35 mil out that, not a lot of options for 35 mil.
No, there's not.
So doing that, and then we're going to go higher with the 34 mil because there's not a lot of options for 193 34 mil either.
And why you need that night vision?
Yeah.
Is that for inline or people want if you're wearing nods?
Nods usually.
Nods, yeah, because I think all the inline as it is right now is...
It's all 154, 39 mil typically.
So what do you have to do then? You put that on a riser, your inline stuff?
Yeah. But also there's no standard. So we had, a military or government customer asking for risers for their inlines because they were, different heights and they needed a specific. I was like, you guys. It was like they were using like 170 scopes, and they had 153.
Self-licking ice cream cone for you, though. Every time you change something, you got to change something else.
Exactly. Right. But a lot of those things, like I said, we made them because they were requested and they didn't exist, and so we try to fill in those those lower volume but special customer needs.
Speaking of special customer lower volume, I want that fixed direct mount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
We're gonna do that.
That's what I want.
And Q-Cert stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
We do have the prototype. We didn't bring it up, but it's a Q-Cert torch, so the light body that'll do
Nice.
Q-Cert, and then we've got some other ideas for Q-Cert accessories that we.
so we need to bring a
Wanna do.
handguard out so we can put stuff on. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the AR handguard for it. I like Q-Cert. I like it best.
Super light.
Yeah. No, he's
Yeah.
Ethan
Strong,
nailed
yeah.
it on that. Yeah.
Easy.
So
Yeah,
much more convenient.
yeah. That was it was a good idea, poorly executed back in the day with the MSR.
Right.
And that's part of the experience, and we keep talking about, and
Yeah.
then also like perseverance. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so that was almost it, but wasn't
Yeah.
it? How do we make it it?
Right.
What what are like how? And I don't know if this is a question for both of you or one of you, but okay, so what differentiates from a sales perspective? So probably Nick, like what's better? Why would someone buy your one-piece mount, or what do you call the mounts for
Dot
the
mounts.
dot mounts
Top mounts.
over other good ones on the market?
So it's twofold. The reason why we made the AUS mounts was we had a customer who was a small unit that wanted a certain specific feature set. They wanted it to be as slim as possible, so no big nuts on the side. They wanted it to be backwards compatible with our existing ROF top little red dot mounts. They wanted it to be light, and they needed the ability to mount an offset, either backup sight or mini red dot, without taking up additional rail space.
Yeah, so like here.
Essentially, they're fielding a gun that is fairly compact, and they needed the rail space to do the low variable power optic, the laser, and a clip-on night device. So if we can do the offset without taking up additional rail space, that was kind of their wish list.
Yeah.
The problem was the existing mount manufacturers are so married to their current systems, they weren't willing to deviate for a small number.
That's great
So-
opportunity.
Exactly, right. So as Eric has mentioned several times, we never wanted or expected to be a mount manufacturer, but we just kind of fell into it because they had a need and we were able to fill it fairly quickly. So on the sales side, one of the things that we do is obviously the lack of the big nut on the side is big for guys, especially if they're running something like an ACR or a SCAR that has a side charger. They're not racking their knuckles against that big
Yeah,
nut.
sometimes it's inconvenient for me because there's not a half inch. But then, for instance, when I have this Mark V on the fix, and so you didn't have a 35 millimeter,
Right.
and I'm and I like the mount pretty well. It's a Badger ordnance, I think.
It's either
Yeah.
Badger or Loopold.
Because the thing is, there was only like two at the time when
Right.
I got that. But I carry that gun slung on my chest, and then I remember how I
Digs
hate
in.
those nuts that stick out
Yeah.
that far every time, unless
Yep.
I have a coat on or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, exactly. And that was kind of the wish list.
Yeah, so I get it.
From a sales standpoint, one of the things that we have really pushed to do was be very easy to work with for dealers and distributors. We don't do frequent sales to undercut their margins. When we do, we offer them additional discounts. So you'll see some of that around Black Friday. So it's not the sexy innovation design piece, but there's a lot of dealers who, let's be honest, they need to be able to make money in order to actually run the business and sell the products.
Yeah.
So by the factor that we're, I guess, trying to make it easy to get the products, to sell the products, deliver quickly, not undercut their margins. That's
Yeah.
another reason from a
I mean,
sales
support
standpoint.
your local gun dealer, man. It's important. Like, you don't
Right.
realize it until, force them to be good. I mean, there's lots of competition out there, but support them. You don't realize how important it is until you move somewhere where there's not
Right.
one around or one closes down. And, like, it's cool to order online. I love when people order from us, and I'm sure you guys do too. But and probably growing up in a brick and mortar gun store,
Right.
I'm also, because, big box came to town,
Right.
and they take some of the business, but your core customers are never going to go because you have such a knowledge base, and that's important. Where at Bass Pro Shop, generally no one knows anything about any guns there.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So from a dealer perspective, you guys have that. Do you sell through distribution as well?
We do. We've got RSR and Sports South are the two biggest ones for us.
Okay, so that or a dealer direct, and you sell consumer direct on the website.
Right.
We do. It's kind of a mix. I mean, some guys really like talking directly to the manufacturer and ordering, there. there's other guys that if you're in charge of, merchandising an entire gun store, you just don't have time to cut purchase orders to 50 different brands. So if they can add it to their RSR order while they're buying ammo and cleaning kits and, honey badgers, it's just simple. And so it's kind of a necessity, to be honest with you. It's like if you go to the grocery store and they don't have cherries, they're going to buy apples or something like that. It's easily substituted for a competitor's product if it's convenient. So we just want to make it as easy as possible. But for the guys who prefer to come direct, absolutely talk to you all day.
But also back to what you were saying earlier about 10 years ago we would have never been able to make what we've made happen. Nick going through all the different companies, Magpul, Radian, Silencer Co. He's been around the industry and knows the sales side in and out, and knows what makes the whole system work. And I know what the design side, what makes design stuff kind of tick, and he knows what the sales side. So it's really a good mating of two different skill sets that complement. Yeah,
that's cool, because it is a complicated piece to me. Like, absolutely. I wrestle with it all the time, because for us, what do we wrestle with right now? Okay, so we had, and even before COVID, a huge back order position. So fulfilling the back order, not letting quality slip, and maintaining innovation and developing new products. So that's always like the shell game of the things you're working on.
Right. But
when it comes to the sales, like what's a distributor do for me now?
Right.
And I'm a little more, forthcoming with the guerrilla marketing and stuff than you guys.
Right.
And it's sexy when you have a gun. Right. That's always a sexy thing. Like, Magpul's a cool company. You guys are a cool company. To show your product, for it to make sense, you got to put it on a gun.
Right.
But we were fortunate to, and so thank you for all the work on the honey badger, to create something to where there's a big demand for it. And it's like, okay, do I sell it? And this is a thing like all the companies wrestle with over time. And you see them make mistakes and do it correct. And I don't know what the right answer is, but my love is really for the consumer, which I think is everyone's goal.
Of course.
But I really love the brick and mortar gun stores. And like, I wrestle right now with, does distribution do something for us? And I think yes, but if we got a year backlog on everything, if I cut out distribution and that cuts out 6 months of that, like it makes no difference to me, really, and it might as we increase production. But
one of the things too is if you did add on distribution and you can't supply them, you end up pissing them off. So it's kind of one of those things, if you're in that position where you have a year backlog, it might not make any sense. For us, it's a lot about, like I said, the fact that it's a one-stop shop. It's like adding everything to your shopping cart at once.
No.
But then they also have credit terms, which you and I have seen these crashes and spikes and whatnot. A lot of people just over-order, they get aggressive, and then they go bankrupt. Yep. And so there were a couple times at Magpul where these little gun shops would order 1,000, 10,000 PMags at a time and couldn't pay. They went out of business. There was one, I won't name names, but there was one company we actually ended up taking guns from them because they were going to default.
It's so funny. I did that last week.
Oh, there you go. So I think it's coming again.
I traded product when, and to us, it's like dealing with brick and mortar. And I see, to me, when I started looking at it, we had some dealers that owed us money. And I was like, in this market, okay. Well, then I go in a gun store, and it's like there's lots of guns. There's lots of ammo on the shelves. And I was like, oh, okay.
The writing's on the wall.
And so, you talk to them, and, like, I get it. Stuff happens. And only thing I'm not going to tolerate is you taking product and never doing anything. And, if something happened to me, it's a mom and pop brick and mortar, and they explain to me, and they have some, I don't know, tragedy and personal thing that appeals to me, like, maybe whatever, we can write some of that off.
Right.
But people that just decide not to pay, like I personally get involved and contact them.
Right.
Because it's bullshit. And it's like, hey, you got a situation, you order too much, whatever the thing is, I make mistakes every day, can't pay, fine. What you got in inventory? We need ammo.
Right.
There are guns that we need. There are optics we need. Like, you are not stealing from me.
Right.
But I also am willing to work with you. And yeah, so I mean, I think that happened to me at Advanced Armament, and like that was a lot of my knife collection that I've got, and a lot of my firearms.
Well,
I got them that way.
There was another very large company, again, not naming names. They knew that they were going to go bankrupt, so they placed massive orders for stock, scripts, magazines, all that kind of stuff, because they knew that in bankruptcy they didn't have to even send it back. And it's a major brand. So there's a lot of skeezy stuff. So going back to just simple risk mitigation as a business, that's what distribution brings for me. Is I know RSR pays their bills, Sports South pay their bills on time, every time.
Yeah, they're great.
And so that's why, just as a younger company, I'm not a bank. I'm not in the business of extending terms to everyone and their mother, especially in a very volatile situation that we could be entering right now.
Yeah, my banker told me once, he's like, I won't start making guns if you don't loan people money. And that stuck with me. That's a good point. Yeah. And now it's really easy when people ask to borrow money. I'm like, my banker told me once.
Yeah. Like, no, absolutely not.
It's like, yeah, so if he says it's okay to loan you money.
But I wanted to touch on what Eric was saying too, with regard to our different roles in terms of, him doing the design and me doing the sales piece. I'd say I've got the easier job, because in the Mike and Richard dynamic at Magpul, Richard was always the one that would come in and be like, just make this. It's easy. And so I've kind of got that role with Eric right now. I'm like, hey, I have a customer who wants this thing. Can you do it? And I just get to walk away, and he has to make it work.
You're greatly oversimplifying that and downplaying your role. You are great at your job. But I will say, at our company, we don't have anyone we don't have sales.
Right.
And we're fortunate. And I had this attitude with you guys at Advanced Armament. If we create the best product, we don't have to have salespeople.
It sells itself.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, I'm the sales guy. But that's always what you hope. But especially with accessories, and you got stuff that you can mass produce, and there's competition, you got to have somebody that knows what the hell they're doing.
Sure.
It's something that I've always really disliked being called a salesman, because it has that trickery effect to it. And I think back to Remington, where they would basically force customers okay, if you want ammo, you've got to buy a bunch of these shitty guns too. Otherwise, you're not getting your allocation. And so it was something that they knew they had a bad product, but they would basically force the hand of the customer to get the good stuff.
That was common with H&K back in the day, when I loved H&K and was a kid and worked in Bullseye in Lawrenceville, Georgia. They were a HK dealer, and HK had some dogs. They had some shit products, but you had to buy that stuff to get all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And FN was, I think most gun companies, SIG does that. I don't know for us, but I think I'm to the point where I don't think distributors, it's hard for me. We ship them a pallet of guns. All they put is a shipping label on it and push it out the door.
Push it out the door, right.
And people know who we are now, where they didn't, 5 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still tons that don't. But, once you start talking about giving distributors millions and millions of dollars a year.
Right.
Could we do a better job internally? And, what do we as a company think the future is for our company? And who are the important customers, in the in-between us and the end user?
I feel also, how many more potential buyers are willing to pull the trigger, no pun intended, when they see that we have a 2.5 month lead time or a 3 month lead time, as opposed to 15, 16, whatever it is, because we're not sending 500 guns to this distributor and 200 to that one or whatever.
Well, I think eventually, too, we have to have inside sales and customer service and however we deem it or word it. But, I think it's more of a dealer liaison sort of thing.
Right.
And, as we grow, we're going to need that eventually. And I hate one thing that I've halfway learned is, I typically do things when I have to, and then that sucks, and it's way harder. And you got to start anticipating this stuff, and it's way easier to implement these sorts of changes when you kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit. Always reacting, you never do a good job with any of that.
So one of the things that is negative about using distribution is they don't share data with you. We've been having a lot of conversations about marketing and customer service and whatnot, and the simple fact is I'm of the belief that we will be, as gun companies, we'll be kicked off social media within the next few years. I think Instagram and Facebook specifically will probably prohibit companies from doing anything gun-related, and then maybe individuals next. So where do we go? Because it's so critical. When you guys had your Instagram page shut down, how many tens of thousands of followers did you have?
At the time we were at
92 or 93, 4.
Well, we're at just under 100 right now, but I think at the time we had 70.
Oh, I thought we were at 90. No.
Well, that was the first one. We've had multiple get shut down.
Sure. So, but I mean, that is, if I'm not mistaken, your primary avenue to communicate through customers.
It was
right?
the only way.
The only way.
Doing it.
Right.
So, what happens in a month, a year, 2 years when we're all just gone? What's your avenue? And so, building the relationships directly with customers and dealers, it might be the way forward. So you can communicate via direct email. I mean, God, are we going to go back to silencer talk again? Like forums?
It will be interesting to see if
Right.
we go back to that. For me, what I think is I'm open to it. The Instagram thing sucked. They've shut us down 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And, of course, don't tell you why. And I think it was gone for 6 months.
Yeah, and then recently we made official Q2 the backup, and we weren't doing anything on it and made it private, and that one got yanked. And then we, like a month later, I appealed it, and then a month later it just showed back up. Like, so even if you're not active on it,
I mean, email we can control. So I think, I'm cognizant of that too. And once they took it away, now, like, I don't have a fear because it's not like they're just going to take mine away. I'm not doing anything illegal, and they're nothing that other gun companies don't do, probably other than like hurting more feelings. But, so they'll all go away. So it'll be a level playing field. It was like the thing with the Honey Badger pistol. So what? We just correct. And I always hope, like, that's the confidence I have in our company, is that we're going to be able to change course better than a lot of companies. Right. Whether that's we're just going to do it through email. I mean, as we grow too, part of what I want my job to be is, like brand ambassador for Q. But in building part of the brand around me, for better or for worse, I do, like anyone that knows me, and you can see the things online, what an asshole I am, but I love what I do. I'm passionate about it. I love our actual customers.
Yeah.
And, like I want the Q motorhome to go around and do things at the gun stores, promote the companies. The way gun companies used to do some stuff in the 50s, give stuff away. Like, I'm generally a fairly generous guy. And I love fun and the spontaneity of, kind of just, like the carnival atmosphere of showing up. We're going to do this thing. We're going to give stuff away and always leave the customer with more than they were anticipating. And we just own that content and we post it and control it. Like, I don't know what the future's going to hold, but I do think you're right. The way it's going with social media, we're all going to be gone. I mean, it'll all be gone. But, I mean, who would have
came
thought?
up in an industry before social media. So.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
It's like water. You can dam it up, but it's going to find a way to flow somewhere else.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you think we were doing, that's a good point. And there's so many of these companies, and it's so weird being an old guy in the industry now because I was a young one for so long. But, I haven't even ever lived life without social media. So it'll probably be scarring for them. But for me, we were doing printed ads, and then the forums started. And that was great because then you could have direct contact.
Mm-hmm.
When you talked about, like, me, you, and Trey back on Silencer talking shit to each other. And then people wouldn't know that we were friends, too. And, like, Trey did the Dick-Pull logo and posted it for you.
Hey, Magpul guy.
And what did he say? He mocked me saying that we're a muffler company?
He said, Kevin, we make cars, you make mufflers. And so I'm like, hey, guess what, Trey? They make cars now.
But, that was like the first kind of, other than SHOT Show with the booths that you guys did at Magpul, which were awesome and different, and AAC was doing similar stuff, and then the forums were able to connect, and so then you see the personalities and the people.
Right.
And social media has taken that to another level. But, social media, and, don't take it too seriously. I love, I'm always going to thrive in that, and that pisses people off, and I come off the way that I do. But for me, it's like, it's marketing. All the things on social media, just like with everyone else, that's not your real life.
Right.
Like, to say that, some of the stuff that I see where we talked about it earlier, the Honey Badger, it's just a Gucci thing, and Kevin's just good at guerrilla marketing, but, you could build the same gun, or so-and-so offers it for $900. Like, you're a moron. Like, that's just not real life.
You might get a gun, but it's not the same thing.
And people talking about or telling us to spend more on design and innovation and less on marketing or whatever. I'm like, Hey man, we just like film videos at work. Like, what do you mean spend? What are you talking about? All the money goes into that.
Yeah.
And I mean, the marketing thing is weird because the first time I was ever exposed to a truly professional marketing team was Silencer Co. They had a marketing department that was disproportionately large compared to the size of the company. And I would argue that they, to a certain degree, were a marketing company who sold silencers. They invested heavily into videos and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think they took what we were doing at AAC to another level that was good, in my opinion. But they didn't keep it in check.
No.
And we see what happened to them. I mean, they imploded, and that was kind of a sad thing. What is important to me is we develop the most innovative and the best products, and we're able to deliver that. And I want the consumer, like, it's very important to me that the consumer is, what's the word? Like, I want them to always get more than they anticipate and be like the product better and be more excited when they see it. From the time they see it, they pick it up, they shoot it, their experience, it's always better than they anticipate. And that is impossible to do every time, but that's always my goal.
Right.
I will take that over more money or a bigger company or being a nicer guy any day of the week. Like that, those are my goals. And I think overall we do a pretty good job considering so far, and we're going to continue to grow and get better at it.
Sure.
And it's definitely not everyone's goal, and my investors, they had to know that when they invested, this is my goal.
Right.
And I know that we can do this and the money follows that. You got some time. We talked about this yesterday, huh? When are we going to get these for the fix, my man? When is this thing coming off?
That's a good question. We got
ETAs.
a lot of things on the table, but yeah, I mean, we're saying by the end of the year for sure.
Okay, I can wait.
It's ready when it ships.
And this is the AK, huh?
AK grip. Yeah.
Was this just something you wanted to do, or is this a request from a customer?
That's one of the few. Well, these two are two examples of something that we did. But that one was for the fix because we couldn't put the CQG on the fix because of the beaver tail on the back. Yeah. And then the AK, people just kept saying, "Hey, I love your grip. I wish it was an AK grip." So, all right, well, we can do that.
Do we know from the experiences you guys had at Magpul, is the AK stuff? There is a huge market for it as well.
There is.
And there's also, it used to be just Tapco options for AK.
Yeah, that's true.
And then then Magpul got into that space, and now it's just Magpul and Tapco options. Whereas where AR-15s, you've got 10 different options, right? So
or more, yeah.
I would expect, based on import restrictions, that the U.S.-made AK market will probably have some sort of resurgence, and we might start getting decent quality AK parts that are made in the U.S.
Oh, that's cool.
So, in addition to being a 922R compliant part that you have to have for a foreign-made gun,
that's right. Yeah.
I think that they're like Kalashnikov USA and stuff are going to boost up their manufacturing to avoid any sort of import bans.
Well, I wonder if. So is there now? There's a ban on the ammo.
Yeah. Right.
It's just that they can't. New companies can't get a contract, and if your contract expires, you can't re-up it. Correct?
It's an import issue. Yeah. So I talked to one of my former bosses, who's now at a very large ammunition manufacturer. He said that he thinks that you've got about 2 years worth of import open licenses. That will continue to bring in 5.45 and 7.62 from Russia.
Right.
But he also did not rule out the possibility of tooling up to make AK ammo here in the States.
I feel like that's probably the next step.
Well, if that happens, then to me the AK market dies.
Really?
Yeah, you're gonna pay the same for AK-47 ammo you do for 300 Blackout.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean,
I think a large portion of at least what I see online, and so take it for nothing. I like AK. I love all guns, but AK is freaking cool. I don't ever choose to shoot it over my AR.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are married to it because it's cheap ammo.
Yeah. But I think, like you explained, like, if you do see that surge of American manufactured AK platforms, like, I think that then makes these other companies like Rifle Dynamics or like even Jim Fuller himself, like, I think now they have to play ball. So you're going to see lower end, not lower end quality, but like more affordable. Like I don't know. I think it creates a competition.
I mean, you're not going to see $1,000 honey badger
No.
at any point. So I don't know.
Right.
I mean, these guys are probably,
But-
if they have surplus capacity, there's always going to be room for the best. So the guy that can spend $2,500 on an AK probably didn't matter to him.
Yeah.
But when you start having to pay 5.56 and 300 blackout and 308 prices for AK ammo,
Right.
all of a sudden, I think those ergonomics and being able to mount it, like all the things that aren't great about an AK, people gonna wake to very, very quickly.
Yeah.
No.
Like then it's just you're having an AK because it's cooler, because there's nothing
Right.
functionally.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what
they're
I was
not-
gonna say. It's everyone has 3 ARs now,
Right.
so they want to diversify their
Their
collection.
bonds.
Exactly.
Diversify your bonds.
I mean, I have
Exactly.
I've got a Jim Fuller AK,
Yeah.
the Silencer Co. one we did. It's probably a $3,000 gun.
Yeah.
Never shot it, but I bought it.
Yeah. Well, for
Yeah.
me, I've got an AR-18 and I've got a G36, and I've got several awesome AKs.
Where are you in the FAL market?
I have FALs. I like the FAL.
Me too. I'm
Um,
gonna get one.
But I don't, like, if I want to go out shooting, you can't beat the AR. I mean, you just can't.
Right.
It's more enjoyable
Right.
to shoot. Like, I was so excited back in the 90s when the G36 was coming out and couldn't wait to get mine, and the anticipation, I waited a year, it shows up, and I probably raced to the range like immediately and, loaded up all the mags and instantly shot it. And I was like, oh, man. Like, I mean, it's a great gun, super reliable. It's cool, but it's
Right.
not enjoyable to shoot like an AR.
Mm.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting, but I mean, yeah, it's cool. I mean, this is something to me. I love seeing what you guys are doing, and these are the steps you take. You do the thing here, you do the thing there, you do the scope mount, you diversify, you grow, you offer a great product.
Yeah.
The one that we're most excited about is probably the AR-15 stock that we're coming out with hopefully later this year. Should actually be something that is not just another standard carbine stock. I think people will be pretty excited about it.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
We got to do a gun just to put it on.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, I don't know. There might be easy to do because there might not be braces and stuff
Braces, yeah.
anymore. So
Right.
it opens up a
But
lot
even
of
like
stuff.
even the modularity that you showed us with it as well, like that just
Oh.
opens you up to so many different
Yeah,
possibilities.
with this.
I
308.
think, and I don't know what you guys want to give away and what you don't, but what I will say is when it is available and we go back 15 years and 10 years and you start looking at the progression of these things, like, it's very easy to see why, and I don't know if your products are more expensive than your competitors, not, I have no idea, but why you pay what you're paying for, the design and the
Right.
experience, and you can actually see a lineage of, oh, I just can't wait because I don't want to give it away, but like, and you start looking at the specs of
Right.
the older stuff compared to the new stuff, and it is easy black and white to see. Where, I don't know, you look at the honey badger and people say the one that we did at AAC
Right.
compared to the new one, well, what are the differences? Like, you can't even, like, spec wise,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we did faster twists and the adjustable gas block now, and we
Just
improved
more,
some
way
internal
more
things.
refined now. But
Yeah.
that, and it's amazing that now, like we were saying earlier, that 10 years later, it's still got so much popularity.
It's so
And
good.
it's been in all the video games, all the kids know it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like the FMG9 we did at Magpul. Everyone's like, oh, FMG9, Call of Duty.
I wanted to bring that up earlier too, and I forgot, so I'm glad you said it. So it's the folding Glock thing.
Right.
You guys did it better than me, but how do you get attention at SHOT Show, or how do you become known as an innovator? Coming up with projects like this.
Well, that and again, that it's organic, right? Because we didn't do it to be cool at SHOT Show. It just happened that came along as the idea of redo the radio gun, and now we can do it with plastic, and Glocks are easy, and so we did it.
Yeah.
And then it just happened to be that the prototype was ready for SHOT. It was a lot of work to get it ready for SHOT Show,
Yeah.
but then we took it from there, and then was it Future Weapons on Discovery
Yeah,
Channel
with
was like,
Mac.
oh, can we put that on there? I had to go drive out to Kentucky and shoot this thing, and we got
for real?
third best CQB weapon of all time.
That never existed.
Future weapons. That's so
Was
great.
corner shot like one
Yeah,
or two of
sure,
them? Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
That third best. That's so awesome. I just love. I
but-
mean that's iconic too. The SHOT Show video of Drake with his baggy shirt
Right,
and all.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
get
get
down to
down to-
business.
yeah, But, you know,
Is that what he said?
yeah.
Yeah. Any problems occur?
We actually when that started going around the show, the FBI I guess actually released an internal memo that like these things were around and like they should all their
Right.
agents
Be
should
wary.
be aware that people
Yeah.
have these little folding out guns. They thought we were selling them.
Oh God.
But then another one, like the Ronin project we did, that was another project.
The
that,
motorcycle.
Yeah, it was not because we wanted something cool to have at SHOT Show. We just
Turns out you got something cool, so you take it.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So Trey
Yeah.
had a good idea years ago, and I think it was because of the FMG9 and the PDW or PDR. I think is what.
Because
we called it.
Stoner did. I mean, the Soviets
Yeah.
did, and then Stoner had the radio
Right,
gun. But
right.
yeah.
Trey's idea was, why can't we do concept guns the same way Ford does concept cars? Maybe it won't go into production, but it gets you that attention,
the interest.
Creativity.
Well, that's
But-
really what you guys did.
It's exactly
That's
what
what
we did,
Masada
yeah.
was. Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah.
if you could get the creative companies like you guys, him, us, whatever, to do these concepts, it could actually be pretty cool.
It would have changed SHOT Show and everything. And
For sure.
had we gone that route, I would probably be interested in still
Right,
going.
right.
But now, like, I'm just.
It's a-
I
it's a
can't
lot of work and
imagine
money.
what it would take for me to go to SHOT Show now. Like, what amount of money they would have to give me, or
And we have the ability to just do it on our own.
like, why
and
does it even exist?
make
Well,
it
yeah,
fun.
it was because the magazines used to get all their content for the year, and then the internet came along, and now you can just release a product direct to your consumer without ever involving a magazine, and that's why the magazine industry is suffering.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, the last few years was just to go to do the parties.
Right.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
Does-
I'm kind of over that now. But that's where I think, and I've been saying it for years, it's like if we get in a position to where we can increase production and we don't need you okay?
Yeah, I made a sound.
We do something like we needed something like SHOT Show for exposure. As much money as it and all it costs, like, in a few years I could afford to buy a ranch in Texas. But like, you just rent a ranch in Texas and you bring the key
Right.
people that you want to show
Right.
it to, and
Right.
and then you get the personal time with them.
Right.
And I don't know. There's no one that's going to spend time with me with our products and not see the passion and not see, why it's better than other things in the industry or that's available. And to me, like, why would we not do that rather than go to SHOT Show and compete for, just
Yeah.
exposure? All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks for
you.
having us.
Yeah, Jay,
It's
thanks
always a
for
good time to see everyone.
participating.
Can I kick
Yeah,
it?
nice. Yes, you can.